Welcome everyone to the regular Aspen City Council meeting of June 24th. It's 5 p.m. and we are going to get started with a roll call. Kate, would you care to call the roll, please?
I can call roll, gladly. Councilmember Guth.
Here.
I'll let Nicole take over.
Councillor Benedetti.
Here.
Councillor Doyle.
Here.
Councillor Guth.
Here.
Councillor Howenstein. Oh, gosh. Oh, my God. Terrible. He did. He's gone. Who am I missing?
Rose. Doyle.
Here.
It's okay.
Rose.
Mayor Richards.
Here, thank you very much. Well, it might be one of those days, you know. We have no scheduled public appearances today, as I understand it, so we will go straight into citizen comments and petitions. This is a time for any member of the public to address council for items that are not on the agenda, and we will just take you one at a time. So Mr. Maple, come on up, please.
Good evening. Thank you all for being here. And I guess it's good that you can be here today. If this was yesterday.
We were here yesterday, too.
I see. Well, I don't know what happened, if you canceled your meeting or just didn't record it.
Oh, no, it was the internet was down across the community. So
Right.
we've heard some people could get us on some channels and some couldn't.
I see. Good enough. Well, that's the reason I'm here tonight is the internet goes down in Aspen a lot. And at least it seems to go down way too frequently in my view. Anytime the internet goes down in this day and age, it creates a major disruption to our community, to safety, to the ability to communicate, and certainly to our businesses. Thankfully, I don't do much business in Aspen, certainly over the internet, but I couldn't go grocery shopping last night to buy food for my dinner. And In my view, this happens way too often, and a government's first priorities should be to provide critical services for our community. In this day and age, it's electricity, gas, roads, and communication. I believe we have some redundancy with our gas and electric, certainly two critical utilities, but I have no idea what happens with our internet services and communication capabilities. But based on, my observation over the years, every 1 or 2 years, we have a massive outing that shuts down our community and our businesses. And this is just unacceptable. As a community, the way I understand it is the service providers like Comcast and other services have franchise agreements of some sort with the cities that surely should have some requirements for redundancy. My guess is that Aspen, given our location, is one of only 2 or 3 other communities in the state, Telluride, I would guess, and Uray, that are located at the end of valleys that do not have any redundancy. So my call to you tonight is to say, please be sure we have redundancy of services in our dead-end valley and require organizations that provide these critical utilities to our community to have those sorts of services.
Thank you, Mike.
Separately, I would also like to know what happened. There's basically been no reporting on, what happened to knock out our services. For me, it was out from 4 o'clock in the afternoon in my office, as well as at my home located 2 miles away, and I had no communication until this morning.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think you make great points, and if we could check with the county as well to get a little better description of the larger system. The county was working on redundancy for the program of internet, but it is a private sector provider, and so we will check with them to see what went wrong and tell them we expect a report when there's been an outage as to what and when it will be repaired.
Thank you.
Thank you. Additional members of the public here to speak to the council. Tony, come on up.
Thank you, Mayor. Richards, may I just turn this out, please? Thanks. Nicole. Good evening, everyone. For the record, my name is Tony Kronberg, and I think what happened last night was a transformer caught on fire, and it took them a while to repair it, and that's why the internet was down. So, of course, they say it takes about 12 times before people really understand what you're trying to explain to them. And I have a question, and that is, during your July 7th work session on the decision you're going to be making about whether you're going to do a new environmental reevaluation process or a new EIS process, will you be taking public comment during that work session? And are there any opportunities for the public to voice their opinion?
I don't think we've decided that agenda yet, Tony, but thank you for the question.
Okay, thank you. So, let's see, so I need to put my glasses on, sorry about this. So what I'd like you to do is, all of you, I would appreciate if you could fact-check what I'm going to be saying to you next, because as you know, my goal is with this entrance to Aspen, we're definitely going to get it done, but we're only going to get done if we're all on the same page and all have the same understanding of the facts and the process. So the very first thing is that the question before you on July 7th is, do we start a new EIS process for the entrance to Aspen and Highway 82, or do we go with a mandatory reevaluation, which is required, mandated by the Federal Highway Department because more than 3 years has passed since the 2007 reevaluation of the Record of Decision and the 1998 Record of Decision? What does a reevaluation accomplish? It decides simply if the preferred alternative is still valid or if a new environmental impact is needed. A reevaluation only covers the project boundaries as looked at in the 1998 Record of Decision and the 2007 reevaluation, which means a reevaluation will only go to Buttermilk for the highway component and to Raptor Service Center Road for mass transit. A reevaluation is a technical analysis. Public review and public comment is not required when re-evaluating a record of decision under the National Environmental Policy Act, which means basically we lose local control. Public comment can be taken, but that's up to the Federal Highway and the Colorado Department of Transportation, and it's usually very limited comment. And the handout that I gave to you, it's the purpose and needs statement from the 2007 reevaluation. And on the back page that I gave you, it talks about 3.0 agency coordination. You see there's no public comment taken whatsoever during the 2007 reevaluation. And I know, Mayor Richards, that you're very strong on taking public comment and listening to the community. So again, we need to fact check that, but there's no public comment. It's not required in the federal guidelines. Then the next thing is that,
Tony, I think your time is up. We, as a council, will be taking comment from our public. I don't know that we can require the Federal Highway Administration or Federal Transit Administration to go outside of their normal bounds. And we do know, for good or for ill, NEPA seems to be changing all the time with the federal government now. They've changed it for forest lands, for leasing, for things like that, where they no longer are allowed to look at cumulative impacts. And there is some concern about whether the Federal Highway Administration of this administration even believes in greenhouse gases or climate change. And so we have some tough sorting out to do as to what's our best path forward for our community. But thank you for your comments and being such a dogged advocate for fixing the roads.
well, thanks so much. I appreciate you paying attention to that, Mayor Richards. And as I said, we're going to get it done, but
Yes,
we all
thank
have
you.
to be on the same page. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And then, Mayor Richards, you will let us know about the public comment during the work session?
Yeah, we're going to be getting a whole schedule together for that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we will now move on. Unfortunately, I just lost the right page to, are there any other members of the public that would like to speak who are online? Okay, we have one hand up with Tyler.
Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. For the record, my name is Tyler Hollenbach, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight on behalf of Harper and Hudson, a true mom and pop business founded and run by Jeff and Ashley Morkey and named after their two children, Harper and Hudson. Before I begin, I would respectfully request a few extra minutes beyond the typical 3-minute limit, given the complexity of the matter and the community interest that's been generated. That be all right?
No, thank you, Tyler. We're going to keep this to 3 minutes. We've received some emails from Sam and others about this. It seems like there's some legal disputes and liquor license disputes, and we are not going to be settling issues at the council table. But please have your 3 minutes to address council with your concerns.
Okay. Well, we're not here to represent a luxury brand or national chain. We're here representing one of the few small businesses founded in Aspen in recent years, one rooted in community, creativity, and approachability. Harper and Hudson has transformed what has long been an abandoned, unused patio in the heart of downtown Aspen into something meaningful, a vibrant, welcoming space now known as Aspen Country. That formerly dead zone now serves youth, first responders, hospitality workers, families, city staff, tourists. They all eat there. We're not here to suggest that Harper and Hudson has been perfect. We acknowledge there have been compliance issues and we don't excuse them. Like many small businesses, especially those navigating Aspen's unique and often Byzantine regulatory environment, Harper and Hudson has faced challenges and has worked to overcome those. While the shed may not strictly comply with certain encroachment or other technical requirements, its placement does reflect the intent of the previous encroachment authorization and has never done so in bad faith. This is indicative of the larger challenges being placed in front of the company and its ongoing efforts to serve the community. Other citations noticed, including frosted string lights over the patio and small decorative neon sign, are both minor and commonplace throughout Aspen and should be handled through a collaborative process, not a rigid enforcement. Harper and Hudson is committed to working in good faith with city staff to address any remaining or newly identified concerns. I'll skip ahead a little bit. The city has had a recent shift in tone in terms of enforcement. For years, Harper and Hudson operated under a cooperative relationship with the city, but this spring that dynamic changed. They were issued a notice of denial of renewal on March 7th, marking the beginning of the shift. It included a list of infractions, including citation of a humorous now hiring non-stupid people sign as a hiring violation. This is indicative of the overreach that is representative of the city's enforcement on this. This last Food and Wine weekend, after adapting their plans in direct response to guidance and input from city officials, Harper and Hudson hosted a private invitation-only event. No alcohol sales, no public access, no known violations of state or local law occurred. Yet city representatives accompanied by Aspen police arrived and shut it down. In doing so, they contacted Harper and Hudson's event partners, causing immediate and significant reputational and contractual harm. To make matters worse, they issued a penal citation to Jeff for open container. These charges are not just unfounded, they reflect a misunderstanding of the facts. We respectfully request the city assist in resolving these citations and any other issues under similar circumstances. Harper and Hudson is not asking for a pass, they're asking for a fair chance, a reasonable, consistent, and actionable plan forward. They're ready to make necessary changes to invest in compliance and continue being part of Aspen's fabric, but they cannot do so under a system of arbitrary rule enforcement and shifting standards. We respectfully ask the City Council step in. Please direct city staff to work collaboratively with Harper and Hudson to establish a clear and actionable compliance plan that allows Aspen Country to continue operating at 409 South Hunter Street. This isn't a problem to be punished. It's a community asset that deserves your support. I also wanted to reference the fact that there are several hundred messages received from community members in support of this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time and consideration.
We will take your concerns under advisement and have discussion with our city attorney. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Do you have anything you'd like to add at this point? No.
No, but certainly if council has direction or seeks more information from my office, we're happy to respond to those requests.
Okay, well, we do have an executive session tonight. I don't know if we might be able to I'll add this item to that discussion.
If there's a majority
would
of
like to have
council,
a
it actually
brief
takes
overview.
a vote of 4 of you. But yeah, we can, I do believe you have the power to add it as an executive session item for purposes solely of receiving legal advice.
Correct. Would that be acceptable with this council to get an overview?
I'd float an alternative, which is to allow staff to continue working with this business owner, license holder, and give them very clear direction of what steps are required for them to become in compliance in a single format, single letter. And I don't know that the 5 of us need to spend a whole lot of time on this. I think it you know.
I don't know that we need to spend a lot of time on it, but we've heard literally just one side of a story. I think we need to hear both sides and then give direction to staff.
That's fine.
Okay. Would that be acceptable with the rest of this board? Okay, thank you. We will add that during manager's comments to the agenda today, or if we need a motion to do so.
I think you would need a motion to add it once we get to that executive session.
Okay, we'll do it at
I
that
think you
time.
can proceed with your regular meeting and we'll deal with it at that
Okay.
time.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Are there any other members of the public for public comment? Okay, and nothing else online? Thank you very much. We will move on from that part of the agenda to the council member comments. John, would you like to start?
Yeah, some good news actually today. As most of everybody in the room is probably aware, there's a proposal to sell millions of acres of public land, national forest and BLM across the West. And there was the backlash from both parties nationally was pretty fierce. I think today too, the Republican senators from Idaho swung the needle and it was pulled. So no National Forest Service lands will be for sale, and they're very limited BLM lands might be, but only they have to be within 5 miles of a municipality. So Don't know if that's going to still go forward, but it's great news for the national forest and our lands around here
For now.
for now.
Thank you. Anything else, John?
I think some more environmental news will be coming in my board reports, so
Okay.
I'll leave it at that.
Very good. Christine?
No comment, just board report.
Well, you guys, we're on this side.
Super briefly, I think Food and Wine was another great success, great kickoff to summer, very vibrant weekend in Aspen, a lot of happy, joyful people around town. So just wanted to thank staff and all the event organizers and tourists and event sponsors, et cetera, for another great Food and Wine weekend.
Very good. Sam? No comments. Okay. Thank you. I only have a couple of items. One, I would mention that the Colorado Association of Ski Towns had prepared a letter on the public lands issue. It falls within our existing policy guidelines, but given the rapidly changing nature of this, I think this letter might already be outdated, and we'll be signing on to the future letter in support of our public lands. It's surprising how many lands are very close to the city, which would be of concern as BLM properties. I think one of our water tower stations up there on the base of Hunter Creek is on BLM land. There's a real patchwork between the two. It'd be important to find out what is still vulnerable and what is not. I have a couple of announcements on behalf of the city. Tomorrow is Bike to Work Day, and so anyone who is already biking to work, you can stop by the Red Brick, the Bugsy Barnett Park, or Pepke, I believe, and pick up a reward, some snacks, have a bike safety check, things like that. We really like to encourage a few new people to get out there and try biking to work. But there's a chance to win gift cards and some other great prizes. So please, they'll be handing out some free helmets while supplies last. It's an event designed for riders of all levels. So that is tomorrow, Wednesday, the 25th. We'd also like to put forward that APTA has made some changes to its regulations. They recently approved regulatory changes aiming at simplifying their requirements and procedures, reducing costs for applicants, and enhancing benefits. So in the future, tax returns and W-2s are now required once annually, aligning with each household's approval renewal date, rather than on a rolling or case-by-case basis. The $5 lottery bid fee has been eliminated, reducing barriers for participants in housing lotteries. And the $50 capital improvement site visit review fee has also been removed, cutting costs for homeowners who are making qualifying upgrades. Owners of deed-restricted properties governed by APTA regulations can now add 10% of their purchase price, minus depreciation, to their maximum resale price every 5 years for the appropriate upgrades and improvements. In addition, more items may now qualify as eligible capital improvements. This only works if you have a kind of current deed restriction, and so if you'd want to take advantage of the program of additional ability to increase your capital contribution to your own home, you do need to get an updated deed restriction. So those are the announcements from the city, and we will now move on to board reports. Or no, actually, we go now to agenda amendments and city manager's comments.
No amendments as far as I'm aware.
Okay.
Two quick announcements all around wildfire preparedness. One is that there was a phone call with the regional partners around different jurisdictions, and there was a decision made by a number of the surrounding communities, counties, excuse me, to actually move to stage 1 fire restrictions. That's in alignment with what the city's already done. So that's kind of on the forefront of keeping us as safe as possible. The other thing is that the Aspen Fire Department and the city are continuing to work in collaboration on removing fuels within the city limits, just to be aware of. So we're trying to stay on top of having a safe summer.
Great. Thank you very much.
With regard to agenda amendments, I think the mayor has suggested she may want to add an item for the executive session tonight. I will say that I don't know that staff has all the information yet. This occurred this weekend. We're still gathering information. I did provide an attorney-client email to all of you, sort of going through the sequence of events as far as we know them to be. I'm happy to have that executive session, but it might be more productive if you give us a couple weeks to gather that information so that we can answer all of your questions. So it's up to you, but if you do want to amend the agenda, I think now would be the time to do so.
Okay, thank you for that, Kate.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yeah,
Rachel?
please.
Kate, would it make sense to sort of bifurcate that discussion into issues surrounding this weekend's incident and then prior issues? I know there was some that related to sort of the food service license and some other matters. And maybe we could have a conversation tonight on those things to, find a path to compliance for them on those matters and then separately discuss this weekend's issues. Would that be appropriate?
Certainly. I will say that with respect to the issues Mr. Hollenbach raised, a lot of those had to do with the liquor licensing issues, and those were really what occurred this weekend from our perspective. But if you want to talk about the land use status and the environmental food safety status, which is handled by our environmental health department, we can certainly take those up separately and deal with the liquor, what we see to be liquor code violations at a later date, if you want to do it that way. Happy to answer any questions, and like I said.
But it's my understanding that this board does not deal with liquor license authority issues, contracts, decisions at all. That's been removed from our abilities. And Wisely has some experts who really spend a lot of time looking at that. It's really up to the board as to whether you'd like to discuss that further or not tonight. We have gotten a memo. We could wait and discuss it further at a future time.
Yeah, I'd be pleased again to discuss it tonight and leave the liquor stuff off the table and leave that to who's responsible for it, the LLA, but would love to.
Okay.
Sure.
I would make a motion to amend the executive session agenda to include the Hudson and
Harper and Hudson.
Harper and Hudson violations of city code with advice from our attorney.
Second.
All in favor? Call the roll, please, for Nicole.
Counselor Benedetti?
Yes.
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Richard?
Yes. Thank you very much. We will have a brief discussion on that. I will be driving to Breckenridge for the CML conference tonight after our meeting, so it's not going to be a super long one. We'll get as much facts out there as we can. Then we will go on to board reports. Who would like to start with that?
I can go first. I attended an all-day QQ meeting, which is Division of Northwest Cog Water Quality and Quantity, hence the QQ, and it was held in Edwards. A lady named Ann Castle spoke. She used to work for the Obama administration, now works for the University of Colorado, but she was recently let go by the Trump administration. Anyway, she's been working on the Colorado River Water Quality Committee for years, and as I think also, as everybody in this room is probably aware, there's the government and the Bureau of Reclamation is working on a new plan to try to figure out how to divide up the Colorado River water better than it has been, because currently we are operating at, we use more water than is available. 2 to 4 million acre feet per year gap. Lake Mead is at 31% full, and Lake Powell's at 33% full, and the words dead pool are being used because in order to fill those reservoirs back up, we have to have higher than average snow years, and this particular year, our runoff was 45% of the historical average. So we are in pretty serious territory here right now in the western United States. It's also estimated that in addition to the millions of acre feet of loss of water due to evaporation, 1.5 million acre feet of loss per year just due to evaporation, there's no way to fill those reservoirs back up with water. And we're also losing water through the ground. The sandstone that the reservoirs are built on is also porous, and it's estimated that we've lost as much water through the ground as we have through evaporation and misuse. Let's see. Currently in Colorado, water conservation is not considered an essential use yet. Believe it or not, in Utah, it already is. Of course, they're a little more water constricted than we are, but still, it's sad to me that Colorado's behind Utah in that particular area. Then we had a representative from the state talk about State Bill 2405, non-functional turf legislation, and the intent is to conserve water resources across municipalities, such as road medians, parking lots, etc. It only applies to new development or redevelopment, but it starts next January, and eventually it will require local governments to regulate turf on residential properties statewide by January of 2028. Let's see, and then we had Esther Vincent, Director of Environmental Services from Northern Water, talk about there's a new reservoir being constructed above Loveland called Chimney Hollow. They were just about ready to fill it, and they discovered that there's uranium present. And it was discovered after a severe weather event triggered a proactive evaluation of runoff due to the new dam construction. That's how they discovered there was uranium in the water. So it's apparently not a health issue, so they say, but it's still being studied, and obviously that reservoir is not getting filled anytime soon. That's it from the QQ meeting. Christine and I, I'm sorry. I had a Sister Cities meeting that was super short. A gentleman named Noah Davis, who has a nonprofit STEM education class here in the Valley for local high schools. STEM is science, technology, engineering, and math. And he wants to start something similar in Queenstown, so that's being looked into. Our treasurer at Sister Cities gave a report. Finances are A-OK. And let's see, there is going to be a Sister Cities presence in the 4th of July parade, if anybody wants to sign up for that. And our ski patrol exchange is, the gentleman who will be going down to Bariloche is headed down there this week.
Nice.
For the season. And as I was saying, Christine and I attended an APSHA meeting, and I'm going to let her take it from here.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
John and I attended the APSHA board meeting June 18th. Of note, the regulations that you just referenced, one proposal was omitted from that round of regulations and will be coming up for first reading on July 16th, and that is changing the definition of a dependent to the same definition that the IRS uses, which means that the baby has actually been born. And this is potentially different for people who have previously applied to the program when they were pregnant or expecting. So the APSHA board will be considering that in July meeting, and if you have any feedback on that or public comment, you can email the board. And we also heard an update on the capital grants program. So far, about $250,000 has been allocated. The average grant awarded was $6,486. So it's being used. People are appreciative, and I think at council we can expect to hear a request for that program again.
Thank you very much for that. Bill? Or?
Nothing, I missed the last REFTA meeting.
I had lunch with the director of public health, Jordan Isabel, and she just asked for an alternate on the public health board since all the other boards have alternates. I mentioned it to Christine, but I'm open to anyone that chooses to do so. I don't plan on missing a meeting, but if we want to nominate tonight, we can, or we could wait 2 weeks. The next meeting's not till July 19th.
Yeah, why don't you give us what their schedule normally is so that everyone can compare it with their other commitments and make sure we can appoint someone who can come, and we can probably do that before the next meeting.
It's just July 17th and October 9th for the rest of the year, and after
What
that,
day of the weeks are those?
those are Thursdays.
Yeah, see, like Thursday doesn't work for me usually, depending on the RAFTA board meetings, so.
Yeah.
Christine?
I checked those 2 dates with the Transportation Coalition, and they do not conflict, so
Okay.
I can do it.
I can probably take it on. It's, they only meet 4 times a year.
Okay, do you, I don't want any bartering or bargaining or cut anybody out. Would you be interested in that? I know John served on the board before you got on there, so there's a little more history, but if you're, as a parent, more interested, Christine?
Either way, I'm interested, but if you're really wanting to get back on,
Oh, no, I'd rather not, but,
I'm happy to do it. It's 2 more meetings.
Okay,
Yeah.
Christine,
okay.
going once, going
guess I must
twice,
have- must have been-
sold.
I'll make
Okay.
a motion to nominate Christine as alternate to the Board of Health.
I'll second.
The motion's been made and seconded. Nicole, will you call the roll, please?
Counselor Benedetti?
Yes.
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Richards?
Yes. Thank you very much for that, Sam, and thank you for
Muller.
Christine to stepping forward. I appreciate that very much. Let's see, I've been a little under the weather the past couple of weeks, but I did attend the ACRA board meeting this morning by Zoom. And as Bill mentioned, it was a very successful food and wine weekend. People seemed happy. The weather certainly cooperated. A great kickoff to summer as the days now start getting shorter. I'm not sure I like that part, but that's what's happening as we pass the solstice. The one thing that was really of note to take a look at is that in a future travel forecast, they're seeing declining reservations and travel commitments across the Mountain West. So it's not just what we're seeing in Aspen. We're seeing people really hold on to their wallets a little more carefully, a time of uncertainty, perhaps with the new war beginning and conflict with Iran and just uncertainty about the economy. People are holding back. And so let's keep that in mind as we look forward for all of our budgets and for all of our spending, that it might not be quite the banner year or years ahead of us that we've experienced in the boom time of the past 10. So that was the only real report. They are very happy with their new facility. If anyone hasn't stopped by to see the visitor center in the old Armory building, it's nice to see that building kind of brought back to life. And we are seeing, as was predicted, the kind of CRJs being really retired out of the air fleet, and more orders coming in for the MBR type of plane that can service our high altitude. So they're keeping track of a lot of things, how people get here, and trying to help bring them along. So those are it for my board comments, and we will now move into the consent calendar. This are items that may be adopted together by a single motion. And what we have on our consent calendar today is resolution number 88, series of 2025, the Vertex change order number 1 for the Lumberyard Affordable Housing Project. This is a small increase in cost as they are cleaning the site, and they found some area of lead. And so this is to continue to do the environmental clearances and clean up that housing site. The second is Resolution 089, Series of 25, Memorandum of Understanding to support the creation of a regional housing needs assessment. And this is something that we're doing to be in compliance with the state law that has passed, the 123 program, to be able to assist us with financing affordable housing. And it is being done regionally, so I like that it's going to be a more comprehensive look at housing needs in Aspen, Pickens County, and Town of Snowmass Village based on current situation and employment demands. We have Resolution 090, the July 4th funding request, again, to keep our holiday safe, new barriers and new crews that are keeping people off the parade route in such a way that no one gets injured by those floats going by, and other safety with parking and things like this. We have resolution number 92, series of 2025, the Maroon Creek pipeline joint repairs. These are for our water system, where there have been patchwork repairs done kind of repeatedly over the last few years, and they're really going to get in and just totally repair those joints on our water system. Speaking of leaking water and not wanting to lose any of it, it's very precious at this time of year. Resolution number 96, series of 2025, is an addendum to our Tourism Promotion Fund agreement with ACRA. We've been working with ACRA so that we can facilitate their visitor center and their needs for administrative offices at the same time that we are asking them to be ready to exit the Armory so we can move forward with the community plans for community gathering place and food hall. And so we're just working to amend the agreement to give us all a little more time to continue to work those things out. And then the final item is a board and commission appointment for an existing member who is reapplying of Colin Frank to the Board of Adjustment. And we had just missed that one. My fault for the last week on Monday when we discussed those, and I was not here. So that is it. Would there be a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second.
All right, it has been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments that people have on any of these items? There being none, I will ask you to call the roll. Nicole?
Counselor Benedetti?
Yes.
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Richards?
Yes. Thank you very much. That is one of our larger pieces. We have a few staff members who get to leave the room, weren't called up. Thank you very much for being here. In case we had questions, we appreciate that. We have no notice of call-ups for tonight. We have no first reading of ordinances, but we do have two public hearings. Or two? Just one.
Action item. Yep.
Public hearing and then an action item. And this is Resolution 077, Series of 2025, Policy Resolution, Amendments to Land Use Code related to short-term rental regulations and definitions. I believe it's fair to say this is work that was begun with the old council of how to improve the STR program administratively and for those who use the program. The council has developed a system of having a policy resolution to direct our staff and make sure we're kind of all on the same page as to which way we're heading. So I will let our proponents and staff members take it from here.
Thanks, Mayor Richards. For the record, Haley Hart, Long Range Manager. At the table, I've also got Emmy Oliver, who's our Lodging and Commercial Core Program Manager, and Louisa Byrne, our Assistant City Attorney, who has also been part of the process to update the short-term rental code. I've got a few slides. I hope that this is going to be pretty straightforward, but I did want to just share sort of where we are in the process with the sort of updates, since we have sort of a mixed council of who is at the work session in February and who's new. And to Mayor Richards' point, again, the policy resolution is just the formal step as provided in the land use code section 26.310 that allows for staff to initiate the process of amending anything within the Title 26 or the land use code. So that is where we are tonight. And specifically, this policy resolution is for two sections within Title 26. The first is just our definition section, which will sort of come out of some updates that we are proposing to the short-term rental regulations, which is Chapter 26, 530. So now that we are about 2.5 years into the short-term rental program, we, as staff, Emmy and Julie, came forward back in February with a work session to just bring forward some of the more administrative tasks that they have heard a lot of feedback on over the last 2.5 years, that they thought, and that City Council has received public comment on, to sort of rework some of our internal processes as well as how we integrate the customers into the program to sort of streamline some of our basic processes. And again, in 2022, when we passed the short-term rental regulations, that was the first time that we had set forward this chapter. So this is sort of just some basic maintenance of what staff has got, feedback on, what I know City Council has heard feedback on over the last few years. So we have a selection of 7 topics within the policy resolution. 6 are pretty administrative forward, pretty sort of streamline focused. There is a 7th that I will touch on as well that is a little bit more policy focused. And we'll just sort of run through what those 7 items are. So the first one is a modification to the public notice requirements for zone districts where unlimited numbers of short-term rental permits are allowed. That is in effort to reduce paper waste and administrative burden in zone districts where short-term rentals are allowed without caps and an assumed use. We've gotten a lot of feedback that it's just very heavy paper for that 300 mailing buffer to have to do that every year. And for zone districts where there are unlimited numbers of short-term rental permits. So there is still criteria to have it noticed on site with a poster, but the first request is just to remove the administrative burden of having to do the mailers for those unlimited zone districts. The second is the elimination of the required HOA affidavit for annual short-term rental permit renewal applications. Council gave staff direction to amend the code so that the mailing notices would only be required, did I get that? No, that's right. So that mailing notices would only be required for new permits rather than the annual renewals. So right now you have to do a HOA affidavit where you are doing it every year, whether or not it is a new permit or an existing permit. And council gave staff direction to only do the renewals or the HOA affidavits for the non-renewal applications, for just those new STR permits coming in. And again, this is just to lighten the administrative burden on, the property management companies who are having to do these every year and who maybe are overseeing hundreds of these STR permits. And so this will just sort of streamline, again, sort of that HOA approval for the new STR permits. The third on our list for tonight is the elimination, is for the tax filing requirements for properties under construction. So right now, the tax filing requirements has that you need to have used the STR permit at least once per calendar year to be eligible for renewal of the permit the following year. And staff has received feedback that folks who have short-term rental permits and who are interested in doing some remodeling, either interior or exterior remodeling of the short-term rental unit, are sort of deferring that or just not wanting to sort of seek that out because they will not be able to rent the unit, therefore will forfeit the permit. And so this update would just sort of give a, sort of exemption while somebody has an active building permit through community development. The fourth is an exemption from the non-transferability clause in the case of a permittee death. Right now, you cannot transfer who is owning the permit, right? So we have this concept of the permittee, who is the actual holder of the permit, and that's typically the owner of the unit. And we've received a lot of feedback and frequent requests of just sort of estate planning and sort of accountability for future years of who is going to have the permit, of in the event of the permittee's death, can I sort of move that permit to somebody else, within the estate, within the family? And right now, that is not viable. If somebody passes away while they're holding the permit, they lose the permit. So we've been working with the attorney's office to sort of understand what would make sense in the event of a permittee death, and how that might be able to be transferable. The fifth update is in regards to the concept of a run-out period in order to honor bookings after the sale of a permitted property. And this is a topic that council has talked through in past work sessions, sort of prior to this update that we saw from the February work session. But during the most recent work session, council did agree to move forward with amendments to allow future reservations of the short-term rental permit to remain valid post-sale, just for an interim period. And that interim period is what we're calling the run-out period. So we anticipate a fourth permit, which would be the STRT, or short-term rental temporary permit, which would be issued for that temporary period to honor those bookings for a time to be, considered at first reading or a future date. And then the sixth item is involving holding short-term rental advertising platforms accountable for publishing only compliant short-term rental units. So currently, if staff finds that information is missing from an online advertisement, such as the wrong occupancy number or a lack of a short-term permit number, staff can't identify the owner to hold them accountable, and the non-compliant advertisement remains on the website. So this is something that the team has been working with third-party platforms on and has some support around, just to give staff a little bit more ability to work with those non-compliant advertisements. So those are the 6 items that we see fairly, straightforward, more sort of administrative focused. The 7th item is in regards to caps on short-term rental classic, or the STRC permits in the residential multifamily zone district. So this zone is traditionally many multifamily complexes that have served as both local housing and short-term rentals. This is just an image of the east end of town. And specifically within this GIS snip of the east end of town, this is currently 75% of the RMF waitlist within the RMF zone district. And it's just created a backlog of waitlist applicants for the short-term rentals within this zone district, which has had a history of sort of serving lodging and, tourist alike over in the east side of town. But it is complicated and necessitates further conversation with council, as the underlining sort of concept of the caps comes from zone districts, which we need to have further conversation on if there is a desire from council to amend the caps within just one zone district, or to sort of change how the wait list or those on the wait list get short-term rental permits for this specific zone district. So right now, there are 48 applicants in the wait list for RMF, and I don't believe we have gotten to the point where we can even issue the first permit for the RMF zone district. So this is just sort of a larger topic of conversation, as it would involve policy change that is, moving past what is sort of the baseline within the cap zone districts currently in the short-term rental chapter. So this is just the anticipated timeline. So again, August 25th, we have booked this work session to specifically focus on the residential multifamily zone district, to have a conversation with City Council to get some sort of policy direction. We would love to incorporate it in the larger updates being made for those other 6 items. If it isn't quite baked at that work session, or we want to talk about it more, we can also sort of move forward with the 6 changes and keep the policy resolution open, which we have written into the resolution so that we could work on the RMF zone district sort of in its own timeline. So, you know, we can sort of work through that in August. But we do anticipate to do information-only memos to P&Z, HPC, re-engage the STR Technical Advisory Committee, which was the group that helped sort of create these regulations back in 2021, 2022. And then, of course, you know, the STR customers who we have contact information through MuniRevs, Expedia and Airbnb are the ones that we've been working with for the advertising platforms, and just sort of do some generalized outreach through the ComDev newsletter. We're anticipating a first reading in September and second reading in October in order to get these passed for the 2026 renewal period. And again, the RMF work, you know, the work session in that zone district can sort of come at a separate time. So we can sort of figure that out once we get into it at the work session. Okay. I just ran through a few things that I know some of you all have already heard about, but for those who are sort of new to the table this year, we're happy to sort of dig into those questions if you have any about those identified topics. And Emmy's here sort of as the technical expert to talk through the program further if you have any questions.
Board members? Bill?
Thanks. Thanks, Haley, for the presentation and to the whole team for all your hard work on this. I appreciate that we're making some changes here to improve the program, and I hope that that's a continuing effort as we learn from it and gain experience, that we continue to improve this program. Just one specific question. It's kind of relating to item 4, the exemption for non-transferability clauses. And I think in our prior work sessions, we talked about sort of mimicking the real estate transfer regulations surrounding this topic, which also include provisions for tax purposes, which is not referenced in your memo and your presentation. Could you talk about why that's not referenced, and can we, before we bring this to ordinance, get that in there?
Yeah, I'll let sort of Louisa, if you want to sort of talk that through at all. I know that y'all I have not been part of the sort of working group to do the red lines. I've just sort of been on the outside of it, but I know that Emmy and Louisa have been talking through more of like the legal components to do that transferability. So I'll let.
For the,
in the event.
on death. Well, as far as tax consequences, I mean, it's not, it's a transfer of a license, so we haven't really gotten into the tax consequences of that. There's a lot of, you know, one of the things that we have discussed a lot is, you know, making it broad so that it is to the heirs and assignees as opposed to just simply a spouse, because that was originally the recommendation. But as far as, we haven't really looked into the tax consequences of it, and I don't know if that would really come up on the transfer of the license. Like, maybe I don't understand your question.
Let me clarify.
Sorry.
I wasn't talking about tax consequences. That's none of our business. I was talking about exempting non-transferability for tax planning purposes, like assigning to a trust or an estate. And we have provisions in the real estate transfer tax code that relate specifically to that. And in our prior work sessions, we talked about basically mimicking those provisions. I don't see any reason, no one's given me any reason to believe that there's a problem with doing exactly that for STR permits. So I think we've talked about this. I was hopeful that this would be part of the work already.
Well, that wasn't my so right now, the way the STR code is written is that it requires that the STR permit be held by an individual. So if we're talking about, it's kind of a much bigger change if we're going to make the STR permit be able to be held by a entity. Like, for example, right now, the property can be owned by an entity, a trust, an LLC, but there has to be a certain percentage of ownership by the person who holds the permit. So that's why we're talking about, in the event of death, creating it so that that person, if that singular person passes away, it can transfer to another member of the entity or another heir. So that would be a much bigger change for the STR code than just this exemption.
Okay, well, what happens under the current STR code if the property's owned by an LLC and you want to transfer the property to a trust? Same members?
I mean, I think
Is that permitted or
it's
not?
the same, as long as that same member owns enough of the percentage or can demonstrate that they're a member of that trust, then it can still be held by that person. It's non-transferable from a person. So the property itself, as long as they own it, it can change LLC names, it can change entity types, as long as that person who owns the actual license or who holds the actual license is still, has an ownership interest.
Okay, that's helpful to understand. Here's an alternate scenario. What if a parent is doing estate planning and transfers the property from their name into a trust that they are not a member of, that's for the benefit of their children, for example?
Well, that's something that, if you want us to consider, that's something that we would have to consider whether or not then essentially they wouldn't be able to transfer because they would no longer have an ownership interest. So, I mean, if we did make this change, and it was a springing trust upon their death, and the person that they wanted to transfer to was a member of that springing trust, then that would work. But as far as transferring it out of their name, that they would no longer be able to have the permit because they would no longer have an ownership interest. So unfortunately, like, this can get really a tangled web of, all kinds of exemptions. What has been brought up, what we were looking at was simply in the event of the death of the person who holds the permit. Because in the case you're talking about, they could maintain an interest in that trust.
Right. I'd leave you with a request to sort of look at this from a non-arm's length transaction sort of perspective, right? So if someone's really not selling their unit on the free market, they're not bringing this to sort of a new, quote-unquote, new owner, but it's someone that's related to them. This is something that would otherwise qualify for the real estate transfer tax exemption. I'd request that you contemplate finding ways to make it exempt from the non-transferability.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that issue up, Bill. And if you would just prepare the pros and cons as you see it of that when we all discuss it further, that'd be helpful. Other board member questions or comments before we go to the public hearing? There being none, I will open the public hearing on the policy resolution number 77, series of 2025, amendments to the land use code related to short-term rental regulations and definitions. Is there anyone here in the public to speak to us on this matter? Yeah, please, come on forward.
Evening. My name is Ben Wolf. I'm with Frias Properties. I'm the general manager there. I've spoken here before, but see some new faces, so congrats.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you. So first and foremost, thank you to staff and council for even talking about this. I think it shows we're all kind of in the same boat of trying to make this program work as well as possible. And I think by and large, it does work really well. It's nice to see that staff and council have kind of listened to some of our feedback. And as Haley said, a lot of these are just kind of administrative things to streamline the program and make it a little easier on everyone while still maintaining the intent. So I appreciate that. Just a couple things. I generally agree with everything, and I'm not going to touch on the stuff that I don't have any questions about, but do agree with Bill. I do recall that the transferability discussion was around more than just death. I think estate planning and keeping it within a family unit was kind of the term that was discussed, and ways of doing that without losing the permit, even if that meant moving it from one family member to another. So thank you for bringing that up. The one comment I had on the run-out permit, the STRT permit, is just how long that process would take to obtain the STRT permit. Would the public notice period be waived? Would that be expedited so that, a sale occurs on X date, you can somehow figure out a way to maintain those rentals that are in place for whatever that run-out period is, and not have a gap of, 3 weeks is the typical kind of permit window right now for the application process. So I would just encourage you, since it's not really a new permit, to maybe expedite that process and waive some of the, requirements that are on the other permits. So it's just something for consideration. And then I also fully support the kind of STR permit number on the booking platform. I guess my only question, I saw Expedia and Airbnb were referenced. The question for consideration would be, what if that booking platform doesn't comply with the code language? Are companies to not use that booking platform anymore? Or has anyone thought about, how we will navigate that? Right now, we currently advertise on all of the platforms, and even if they don't have a place to put the STR permit number, we put it in the description. I know from staff's perspective, there's no way to scrub that data. It's not like a data point. So obviously, Frias fully supports scrubbing that and, being a level playing field. But my concern would be if there's platforms that don't kind of work with you, are we then to not use those platforms, which could have an impact on business?
Yeah, I don't think there's been a determination made along those ways. That's one of the items they're going to be looking at and why we're doing the policy direction.
Okay, well, I look forward to the continued discussion on the RMF zone later this summer, and thank you all again for listening.
Thank you for being here. And we have received your letters in the past and take those to heart.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak to this matter or online? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and see if there is a motion from any council members to move this resolution forward.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 77, series of 2025.
Second.
There's a motion and a second's been made. Will you call the roll, please? Is there any further discussion by council members? Okay, will you call the roll, please?
Counselor Benedetti?
Yes.
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Richards?
Yes. Thank you very much. We appreciate your hard work on that and the hard work to come.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. We're now going to move forward to action items. We have resolution number 85, series of 2025, ratifying the APCHA 2025 strategic plan. And I believe we have the director of APCHA here to speak to this, as well as two fine APCHA representatives here who can tell us what changes and what are the highlights of the 2025 strategic plan. Whoever would like to go first.
Mayor Richards, members of the council, thank you very much. So the APCHA strategic plan is updated every 5 years. We conducted, for the first time in this cycle, an extensive community outreach, including a community survey, in-person feedback sessions, and then culminated in a board retreat, which resulted in the plan. We hired John Doherty, who a lot of you know very well. We had a broad range of remarks from the community. Thankfully, despite their diversity and breadth, it was all stuff we had heard before. There were no big surprises. There were some radical ideas in there, and there were some more manageable ones, but I think the board did an excellent job of synthesizing the community responses into the strategic plan. The highlights, I think, are an emphasis on communication, on compliance, and on, I think, customer service. So you see that reflected in compliance at the top. Number one, quality, which includes working with HOAs and customer service, so an overall quality of the experience. Community, we're looking at strategies to look at to get data on what we need for the overall strength of the program going forward. And then finally, leadership, which is working with the board at the staff level and also with the community to maintain public trust. We are working very hard on community outreach, and that is a particular strategy which we've put under leadership. So I think the overall sessions went extremely well, and I'd like to thank the board. This is really a board document. This isn't staff. We prepped it up and we did the organization, but the board did an excellent job.
Thank you. Thank you, Matthew, for that. John or Christine, some comments on the strategic plan?
All I can say is a lot of work went into it, and I think it's a great step forward.
Thank you. And I realize you were just half joining in the middle of it.
I can't take any credit for it, but thank you.
Thank you.
For your work.
Very good. Bill?
Two quick questions. One, John and Christine, is there anything that didn't make it into this report that you wanted in the report? Is there anything, or in the plan, I'm sorry, is there anything that's in the plan that you don't want in the plan?
No to both questions. I thought it was very thorough. No, this was a very lengthy process.
Great. Same, Christine? Yeah. And then question for Matthew is, do you have all the tools, resources, team, and desire to execute on this
Definitely have the
plan?
desire. We'll see how we're doing on the, I think so. I think on the resources. And I think it's very helpful to, I think it's great that we look at this plan every 5 years, and I am deploying it as we speak, including during compliance cases. It gives me the ammunition to say, well, this is what the board wants. They want all, the word on compliance in there is all. So, that gives me the ammunition I need to say, this is what we're doing and this is why we're doing it. And so I think it was a great experience. Yeah, it went very well.
Thank you.
I think the simplifications to the process are really meaningful and is going to make it easier to use, and I think will lead to better compliance as well.
Okay. Very good. Other board member comments or questions? I would just like to thank you and your board for all the very hard work that goes into this. We know it's not easy. Compliance is a tough issue, and it's something that a citizen board handles for us with the assistance of a hearing officer and some attorneys. I know I was out campaigning this spring and knocked on a door and had someone say, hey, do you remember me? And I'm trying to think, and then they turned to me, and you kicked me out of my house. You found me out of compliance. And that is not an easy place to be, to say, well, you just really hadn't been doing the hours necessary, and I'm glad you have some new housing, and I'm sorry that that was the case. But it's a no good deed goes unpunished situation for whether it's the hearing officer who makes a determination, whether it's the APSHA board or APSHA attorneys. But our community does demand, and rightfully so, compliance with the regulations. We understand that APSHA can and will look at if someone has a serious injury or there's other issues that have evolved. This isn't about trying to catch someone 15 minutes too late for something, for a deadline. It's more about the integrity of the program. And I would invite any members of the public who feel that they are violations of a housing unit near them, or friends they know, or strangers they know, to please call it in. That's what this program is based on in many ways, is people being able to say, I think there's something wrong with the program. But It's generally very well managed, and I'd say that the vast majority of renters and homeowners are in full compliance with their obligations. Sometimes there are older deed restrictions that give people different leeways or different issues, but overall, it's something that APSHA tracks, is getting everyone up into a new modern deed restriction when possible, and we appreciate that hard work overseeing this important program. I would accept a motion.
I'll make a motion to pass Resolution 85, Series of 2025.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further board comments? Will you call the roll, please, Nicole?
Counselor Benedetti?
Yes.
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Richards?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We will now move into our executive session, which our attorney is going to give us all the legal details for the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor and council staff is requesting an executive session pursuant to Colorado Revised Statutes, Section 24-6-402, subsection 4, subsection B, conferences with an attorney for the local public body for purposes of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions, and subsection 4, subsection E, determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiators. The specific items of discussion involve the following: the lease for property located at 455 Rio Grande Place, Aspen, Colorado, and the land use and health code violations at 409 South Hunter Street, otherwise known as Harper and Hudson.
All right.
I will note that this executive session will be convened in Electric Pass, and in my understanding is council will not reconvene in council chambers, that we will adjourn the meetings from Electric Pass. And this meeting will be, the executive session will be recorded. The recording of that will be maintained by the clerk for not less than 90 days.
And so who wants to make that motion?
I'll move to enter executive session.
Second.
Okay, we'll give that one to John. Nicole, if you'll call the roll.
Counselor Benedetti?
Yes.
Counselor Doyle?
Yep.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yep.
Mayor Richards?
Yes. Thank you very much, and thank you to Grassroots TV for recording this session. We will not be coming back to this room to end our meeting, but we will end it for the record after our executive session. Thank you very much.